Welcome to Archaic Wisdom, the Book of Light. Today we will talk about how to end suffering. Entire world suffers, for whatever reason. But in order to end suffering, we would have to know the cause of suffering, the criterion of suffering. What is suffering? Suffering is impeded volition. That is Book of Light teaching. By that we mean everything that runs contrary to your volition and to your wishes. That is suffering. And everything that occurs in harmony with your wishes, but finding resistance, is also suffering. This is the genius definition taught throughout the ages, and of course also by the great Buddha. It's a self-evident definition of suffering. We find that in the first of the four excellent truths. And they define suffering as follows. Birth is suffering. Old age is suffering. Disease is suffering. Death is suffering. If you are united to a disliked, that is suffering. If you are separated from the liked, that is suffering. If you do not get what you desire, that is suffering. This is what we call suffering in the Book of Light. I think until now you may be in accordance with this definition of suffering. If you are, then you would also agree that there is nothing but suffering in the world. And that leads us to the 5 groups of grasping. The Book of Light teaches they are suffering. We will talk later on in more detail about these 5 groups of grasping. All objects of will that you may want and don't get them, that is suffering. It causes unavoidably suffering. How does suffering arise? Suffering arises where something arises. How and when does suffering vanish? Suffering vanishes where something vanishes. Now, against this, you may revolt. You may say, no, that's not true. You may think that is a perversion sprung from world-sundered, world-estranged brooding, a perversion recognizable as such. Just take a fleeting glance at life. There's an immense quantity of pleasure, of lust, pure joy of family life, nature and art, everywhere. We cannot overlook this. We cannot shut our eyes against this. So not everything in life is suffering, of course not. No. Suffering does not predominate in life. In spite of suffering, you may say, the world, well, suffering exists, but the world is beautiful. It's worthy of being enjoyed. But maybe the Book of Light is right, saying everything is suffering. And maybe that is a positive pessimism. Positive pessimism. Let's take a look at it. The question about life's value, how can we answer that? If there's really value, and if there's only part of life is suffering, but not all. Or maybe yes, maybe everything is suffering. And if everything is suffering, does this lead to the conclusion, well, then we can kill ourselves? Well, the Book of Light teaches that is no solution. Either because reincarnation will throw you back very fast. Because most people, if not all, who kill themselves, just kill themselves because they may not have got what they wanted. So the wish is still in them, the desire. And that will cause their reincarnation and will confront them again with suffering. Let's bring together the materials offered by perception and by means of the activity of reason. Let's be reasonable. Error plays in the action of reason a great part. It's often immense, and especially when we subsume countless isolated accidents of many kinds, and we have a fixed concept in which we are educated from childhood on, where schools and parents present us and educators, this is good, this is bad, this is not suffering, this may be suffering, don't do this, don't do that. Let's see if the Book of Light can go a step further. We have to do that with the utmost care, because there is a great responsibility in what I say here, and I'm aware of that. This is Book of Light teaching, dictated to me by the Ma Chohan in Los Angeles, and then translated into German. You find the Book of Light on allreligionsunited.com, and you can download it, all 10 volumes, at no expense. So this is just a kind of summary. If you really want to get to the core of it, then you will have to study the Book of Light. What is the value of life? Is there a value in life? Or is it a fundamental error of the multitude that life is not even, or life is not worth what they think it is? We have to be of utmost carefulness. Utmost carefulness and thoughtfulness. Carefulness and thoughtfulness, in order to reach a correct judgment as to the cause of suffering and, consequently, to the value of life. When we judge worth or worthlessness of life, could be that we, in that judgment, are exposed to fundamental errors. A thing that a man desires, for example, as life, everybody desires life, must be at all events desirable or not. We are confronted here, dear friends, with a gigantic paralogism. If we think of a man who, for instance, is confronted with lifelong imprisonment, an endless chain of misery, nevertheless, when he faces sudden death, he will say, I want to live, no matter how miserable life is. Dear friends, I was sitting at the deathbeds of many men and women in Los Angeles during my 10 years there. And I can tell you, almost none of them wanted to die. Some did, because the pain was so excruciating. They said, I just want to go, Lanu. But, if I would have given them a pill that says, now your pain is over and you will be healthy and you can continue living, what do you think they would have said? So they want to live. Everything in nature wants to live, and let us take a look at it and say, is that correct? Is this just so and there's no change in that behavior or in that approach to what is pleasure or on that approach toward the suffering. It is evidently clear. In general, a man will take upon him a life full of suffering, even if there's nothing but suffering, only if he is allowed to live, because he doesn't know that there's something else. Well, a Buddhist knows, or Book of Light teaches, and other books too, of course, karma and reincarnation. So we come back, but Book of Light says we come back and suffer again. Because there is no life. You see, this teaching will bring your world upside down and back again. Because life per se does not even exist. The wrong definition of that situation. There is only dying and death. Birth is the first step of the process of dying, of death. You are born to die, not to live. We call it life and live, but it's actually a death process. Let's look at it without not being depressed or negative, just clear, with a clear mind, neutral. There's no life, only death. In this transient world, dear friends, is there another world? There is not transient, impermanent, prone to suffering. Book of Light leads you right to that level, and your fear will sooner or later disappear. It will disappear. Why do we cling to life? What they call life. There's a human impulsion towards life, and we have to decide the question as to whether in life suffering preponderates, or life and suffering are identical. When life is suffering, then we should not stop at this definition. The Book of Light teaches the way out of suffering. It gives you a weapon where you can fight against the power of transiency. And the normal argument is certainly life is worth living, else I should not crave for it in such an irresistible manner. That is why life is worth living, and there's nothing else. Atheists may say, there's only one life, I cling to it, after that it's over. We'll talk about this too. So people will then negate my words because, and without any more ado, because they say, well, life is worth living. Let me live. I do. There may be 2 or 3 people in the world that begin to question the value of life. Dear friends, I'm not here to depress you. I'm here to wake you up, to lead you towards a goal where you are not the victim of transiency, of impermanence, of suffering. And believe me, it's not an eternal heaven. Such a thing does not exist. Even heaven is transient. That's what the Book of Light teaches.
One look in your eyes
breath away, and I feel it, yes I feel it, and I'm sure we must have been lovers, yes we were lovers, in another world, in another life. You must have been mine. We must have been lovers, yes we were lovers, and now we meet again. I never, never, never let you go again. I feel my heart beat, and I almost lose control. This time, love is real, and I'm sure we must have been lovers in another world, in another life. You must have been my wife. We must have been lovers, and now we meet again. Oh, I never, never, never let you go again. Oh, I never, never let you go again. We must have been lovers. Let's get to a basis of reasoning, and hidden behind symbolic teachings in all the religious scriptures, you have the Book of Light, uniting them. Dear friends, this is the purpose of the Book of Light, to unite all religions in the world. Book of Light is the only scripture that says all religions are completely right. They teach correctly origin and purpose of man and universe, but hidden under different veils, under different symbolic veils. We lift those veils. And you are here confronted with the common core of the teaching of all religions. And the fight will end. Religious wars will end. But we must be heedful. We must not block our own way to the understanding of the first, for instance, of the first of the four excellent truths of the Buddha. We must understand them and then neutrally act and say, okay, now we agree to that. How do we go from here? Attachment to something is normal. We will see if it is possible to live without attachment. We must face the question of the value of life in an entirely objective manner. See, like you look down from a high watchtower, removed from all, and you are not influenced anymore by desire or dislike. And then you are able to compare pros and cons, and you are able to judge as to the justification of this craving for life itself. Let's take a look at a lustful man. Is he the proper authority to judge a real woman's beauty or ugliness? I don't think so. In the same way, I say that a man who is possessed by the desire for life is not the right person to decide the worth or worthlessness of life, because he's blinded by his desire. And this is no pessimism in its normal definition. It is positive pessimism, dear friends. Let us judge life in other circumstances. Happiness. Happiness. What is happiness? It is satisfaction of the will. Everybody will agree. What is suffering? It is obstruction of the will. If we look, dear friends, at everything occurring in the world, then we see it's not a single accident consisting by itself, but it is itself the effect of a cause. And this will become again the cause of a new ethic. So with every event, we are bound up to a countless number of emotions, partly pleasant, partly unpleasant. A question arises here. How can judgment be given as to whether an event can be called a happy event or an unhappy one? We have to be cautious. Something that immediately causes our happiness may turn out later to be the cause of unhappiness. Let us try an immediate experience. You won the first prize in a lottery. Now this is satisfaction of the will, and you are very happy. Good fortune. Let's assume that until then you have led a life free from sorrow. And now, in consequence of this, something goes wrong. You change. $10 million change you into an idler, a spendthrifter, a squanderer of all your gains. And suddenly, you have squandered everything. You are despised by all in the same way that you have been loved by all. And you are in deepest misery. You are ruined. And you have no energy to work yourself out of this misery. Now, how will you then judge that event when you were first so happy and the prize that you won, the lottery? I think you may say that this was not a good fortune. It was the greatest misfortune of your life. Examples are always important to prove a point. Let's say you like to drink and to eat, and it's wonderful and everything. You have enough money and you can eat and drink all day long, and you enjoy the taste of food, and you take pride and comfort in that, and you continue. But in consequence of this, you get a grave malady. Will you now, when you writhe in torments, still think the time of good eating, drinking, and so forth are the cause of happiness or the cause of this present suffering? And when you remember it with pleasure, will you really say, oh, still it was nice, when you are in great pain? Or may it be that by correct judgment you curse it. You curse your eating, your drinking, your excessive eating, drinking, smoking, drugs, and so forth. And you say, this is the source of my present suffering. Other example. You are very thirsty. Now you see a cool drink. You drink it. Ah, that tastes good. A pleasant sensation runs through your body. But 1 minute later you feel pain. And you feel more and more pain, and you break down your stomach. You think somebody tears you apart. somebody comes and tells you, you drank poison. That's a poison. Somebody wanted to poison you. Now, can you still say, dear friend, and can you still call this cool drink a good? Isn't it rather so that you recognize this good as the cause of your keen pains, and you look upon the drink as misfortune, and you can register it under the heading of suffering. Therefore, a momentary sensation that agrees with your will does not yet enable you, or should not yet give you the right to enter it in your experiences as good. Take even innumerable pleasant motions of will by some event. One after the other, they will lose their value in the end if, at the end, the long chain, if one single moment is miserable. And this single decisive moment happens to be at the end of the chain. If at the end of the chain there's a pleasurable moment, you can say it was good. If not, you may say, all the pleasure that I experienced leads or led to pain. So when it's full of misery, it, so to speak, sucks up the happiness of years, like a sponge that sucks up the water surrounding it. It may even be the cause of erasing utterly from all life that you defined as pleasurable. Let's assume a person that was unhappy, very unhappy, throughout his entire life. But then, in one moment, he becomes really happy. He really feels happy, for whatever reason. Then you could say all the past does not have power over him anymore, even if it was full of suffering at that moment. When he experienced the happiness, he will have utterly forgotten the moments of suffering. It cannot be otherwise. Only the present is real. And even if you say now it's over, we are in a constant process of transition. So therefore, satisfaction of the will, is that really happiness? Obstruction of the will, is that really unhappiness? Let's take a look at the last moment of life. Evaluation of life. Happy or unhappy? Last moment of consciousness before death. This will be real. If in that last moment, and the people that I experienced dying were not most happy at the moment of death. I met a person who cursed his own mother while he was dying. So forth and so on. Some may be happy. But if you are, in this last moment, really happy, a life of greatest misery will count nothing compared to that moment of happiness. And if at the last moment in life you feel unhappy, then all the happiness and pleasure that you experienced will count nothing. On the contrary, it will increase to unbearableness, because there's a frightful contrast with that moment of unhappiness and all past life, or the life that you lived in happiness. The moment of unhappiness at death is a frightful contrast to the many moments of happiness that you lived throughout your life. Let's reflect about that, dear friends, deep reflection. Are we competent to pass judgment as to how far life is to put as a record of happiness or of suffering? Is maybe all life, no matter how happy or unhappy it is, suffering? This is a fundamental fact that we have to look at it. You have to look at your own life. Look back at your life. Well, at least this was good, that was good, and that. But isn't that all suffering? And can we escape from that suffering? There's a chain of thought that we can follow. I offer that to you. Satisfaction of your will. But in that moment where the object conferring the satisfaction of will is taken away from you, you suffer. And by the way, your suffering will be the greater the joy and the happiness that was granted by the possession of the object. Then only suffering will be real. Imagine a person that you love dearly your entire life, a child or your partner, this or that, suddenly is taken away from you by death, by accident, whatever, or leaves you for another person. All the happiness that you was heaped up in your life with that person or because of that person, turns out now to be a weight that crashes you down and makes you unhappy and causes you suffering. So, persons and things are, from that point of view, or attachment to persons and things, we cut deeper and deeper to the core, dear friends, are suffering, cause of suffering. All attachment is suffering. This is the moment of truth, dear friends. We are honest here. If that is so, then in the book of life we have a final result, negative entry.
But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop.
Und hier sind nur ihre lebenden Zeugen, sondern ihre Gestalter.
The process we have designed can promote peace.
Loved ones, you are coming under the smile of his approval.
Politicians and religion are the fall of man. We don't need no institutions and no government. All we need is that which once united us all. Let the angels' teaching be your guiding star. It is the book of light and love. With the book of light, you're guided from above. We don't need no holy scriptures, no Bible or Quran. We have that where they all come from, in our very heart. We are the new generation of innocence and peace. Knowledge is our leader. The truth shall set you free. It is the book of light and love. The book of light, the book shall lead us all. we're just a few, but soon we shall be living in a world of peace. With the book of light, the book of light shall be. The book of light, the book for you and me. And in the darkest hour of Kali Yuga, when the world is burning left and right, there is a pillar of hope, and it is called the Book of Light. It is the Book of Light. It is the Book of Light.
We don't remain here negatively, but let's begin with that. To make us, to make you, to make myself also over and over again, because repetition is the best teacher, fully aware of the fact that everything in this world, and I talk about hell, earth and heaven, is basically suffering. Even the highest deva basically suffers from the law of transiency. And then let us see if there is an escape from that tremendous suffering. If you are a person that finds a complete and exclusive satisfaction, if you will, in possessing or in cherishing some object, in your family, children, job, some idea that grows dear to you, and now this object of interest is snatched away from you, and you cannot further occupy yourself with it, then life itself may become worthless to you, and you may lament, life is suffering, has no more value for me. A friend of mine was a lawyer, but a lawyer, not, like those ruthless lawyers who are only interested in money. No, he was a lawyer. If you would have asked him, are you a man? Are you this? Are you that? What are you? His answer is, I'm none of that. I am a lawyer with all of my heart. I defend people, I help people, I only want good things. I am a lawyer. Then suddenly, he lost his job. He lost his money. For some reason, did a wrong decision, and he had an accident. He could not be lawyer anymore. He killed himself. That is only logic, in a way. He was no lawyer anymore, so he was dead anyway, because he identified himself fully with this definition, I am a lawyer. So if he was no lawyer anymore because he had no job anymore as a lawyer, nobody wanted him anymore, he was dead. He was a living dead, so he killed himself. This is logic. This is logic. Let's take a look at this situation in our own life. Is there an object of will that cannot be taken away from you? Please listen well. What could such an object of will be? Everything that is transient can and will be taken away from you. In the end, your own life, your body, is transient, impermanent, perishable. So if I only talk here to you, dear friends, about everything perishable is taken away from you and life is suffering, and I continue hours and hours and hours, that's no help. That may cause you to kill yourself already. We don't want that. we want to point out that there is something that is not perishable, that you can desire and achieve, and that will be not taken away from you. So this seemingly negative speech that you hear now, this lecture, leads to the most positive that you can imagine. So listen well. If an object or if something cannot be taken away from you, then this is not the cause of suffering. But when it perishes, when it dissolves, and you still want it, it's not there anymore. It's irrecoverably lost for your will, even if your will may cling to it as much as you want. Therefore, the ultimate criterion of suffering is transitoriness. So whatever is transient, impermanent, is painful. The moment you direct your attention to it, be it persons and things, you direct your attention and your attachment to the cause of suffering. Who is ready for that teaching? 3-4 people in the world. Be it, so be it. Every long path has to start with the first step. So we are attached to sensations. What kind of sensations are there, dear friends? Pleasure, pain, and then this which is neither pleasure nor pain. Dear friends, let us be neutral. Let us be like in the wild jungle on a high tree, on a high stand there, and you look down at the wild animals, but you are neutral. You see everything. You see this wild ocean of life. And look at it neutrally. And then you would agree that we have 3 kinds of sensations: pleasure, pain, and that which is neither pleasure nor pain. And it leads us to a conclusion. When you feel something, it belongs to suffering. That's a deep cut. Feelings are beautiful, wonderful. I agree, but they are the cause of suffering. And dear friends, we want to cut down here to the core how to end suffering, not how to cherish this feeling or that feeling. Book of Light teaches feeling is suffering. Because in regard to the impermanence of things, whatever is felt belongs to suffering. Whatever is a subject to annihilation is suffering. If you feel very good and lovingly and attached and so forth to a person, for instance, and that person is snatched away from you, dies or leaves you, you want to tell me that you don't suffer? And dear friends, we are not wasting our time here to entertain you. We want, for those few who are interested in it, to teach them the cause of suffering and how to escape it. Maybe the entire universe in its manifestation is nothing but suffering. Could it be? Transitoriness is the infallible criterion for what you can call suffering. And if you look at the world, everything follows the law of transitoriness. All things are impermanent. All things are subject to annihilation, subject to destruction. So therefore, attachment to anything, to any person and thing and or thing, is the cause of suffering. Certainly there are objects of our willing, of the external world. We'll say, well, it may be that it's suffering, but for the moment that I enjoy it, it's enjoyment. It's pleasure. But the incessant dissolution is evident. Now, when an immediate manifestation of our willing, or that impermanence, comes into play, what then? Many may agree, well, that's true, the outer world, everything is transient, attachment to it is suffering, I agree, many may say that or understand that already, but what about your personality? Your own body? For many people, this is the only thing in the world which is outside that awareness of transitoriness, so to speak. See, young people are not so aware of the change, because for a while youth seems to remain forever young. When the first lines come in the face of something changes in the body, then the chaos begins, the fear and so forth. We know that. We have to cut down to that core of that which causes no suffering, that which can not be taken away from ourselves. The personality is a great obstacle to that acknowledgement that everything is suffering. Person may say, everything else, yeah, this is perishable and therefore is suffering and painful. But what about my personality, my body? We have corporal form, sensation, perception, mentation, consciousness. But this shows the characteristics of transitoriness in each of them, in the body. Book of Light teaches you are not the body, you have a body, you cling to a body. The body is anatta. And unfortunate people like the Dalai Lama twist the teachings of the divine Buddha and say Buddha meant there is no self, there is nothing. But that's not true. Buddha just taught us, and the Book of Light too, what the self is not and how to detach from it, if you wish so, if you want to end your suffering. The dissolution of the personality into 5 components would be a bold goal to achieve. Personality. What is the personality? 5 groups of grasping, I mentioned them already in the beginning, are personality. Of grasping, dear friends, we grasp to the corporal form. We grasp to sensation. We grasp to perception, activity of the mind, grasping group of cognition. Those are the 5 groups. The personality. Book of Light cuts so deep, it says you are not even your thoughts. The truth you will find, it leads to, at the end of suffering, leads to the end of thinking. Are you then destroyed? No, you just don't think anymore. Cogito ergo sum, as Descartes wants us to believe, I think therefore I am, is not the final step to liberation. Our thoughts, thinking of the Book of Light, leads to non-thinking. My words lead to silence. This is the power of this teaching. If you are wise and bold enough to face even a challenge that of which until now you thought, this is what I am, that's what I am. We'll see if that's true. And we'll see if these words are true also, that not the one who fights 1,000 enemies and who conquers them in battle is the real hero, but the one who conquers his own weaknesses, his own transitory desires, passions. That is the hero, true hero. Many people fight outside because they don't dare to fight inside, believe me. I was talking about the groups of grasping. We need a greater insight into that. But the personality is exhausted by these 5 groups. It's summed up in them. It's summed up in them. And they are called groups of grasping. Let's see why. It leads to the understanding of the essence of personality. In order to comprehend something as a number of definite groups, the character of these groups must be known. They are groups of grasping. They constitute the personality. Let us look at this result as briefly as follows. Our essence is not the personality. We just cling to it. We grasp it. We cling to it. But so tightly that we imagine ourselves to consist in this personality. Glory to the Book of Light. This is how deeply we identify ourselves with the personality, how deeply we grasp for it. And there is a name for these 5 groups. Sanskrit is a powerful language. I teach it in the Book of Light. Upadana Kanta. Upadana Kanta. And these are the 5 groups of grasping. And the character of the 5 groups is thought as components of the personality, and normal person thinks, I am that. I am that person. I use a word now anticipating the goal, nirvana. In nirvana you're not destroyed, you just don't say I anymore. I leave you with that for the moment. And the Buddha left nirvana 1,000 times after meditation to come back and teach. And he meditated, and he came back and taught, and so forth and so on. So you're not destroyed. You're not destroyed. No way, Jose, I would say, to the Dalai Lama. A little respectless. No way, Jose, you teach the wrong thing, Mr. Lama. When you teach that we are destroyed in nirvana, nothing is destroyed. That is an insult to the teaching of the Buddha. Let's take a look at the personality. Book of Light teaches Sakaya. Sakaya. We have a composition of Sat and Kaya. Kaya meaning the summary of the 5 groups. I named them, I mentioned them: corporal form, sensation, perception, mentation, cognition. No, Kaya. And Sat means being. You see, Sat, there's such a secret and a mystery in Sanskrit language, explaining an entire teaching, an entire book in one word, Sakaya, meaning Satkaya. Sat means the being, and Kaya the 5 groups. So you, the true being, cling, led by ignorance, not knowing about the true nature of what you are, or of your true nature, cling to something that you basically are not. But this is done of necessity, so that you will be sooner or later aware of the divinity that you are. You are God. This is the purpose in life. This is the goal in life. You may reach it or not. We have 2 possibilities: to return or not to return, to reincarnate or not, to suffer or not to suffer anymore. So we exhaust ourselves in the personality in these 5 groups. Sat clings to Kaya, Sakaya. Glory to the Book of Light. It was dictated to me by the Mahachohan, and it liberated me from suffering. Because I understood the basis of personality, formed by the material body. In order to end suffering, we have to first identify through what do we suffer. What is that vehicle of suffering? The personality, the material body. When does it originate?
Sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down, don't know where to go, don't know what to do, I'm so alone. Somewhere in my darkest night, I hear a voice telling me there's still a long way for you to go. There are 7 bridges to cross and 7 mountains to climb. 7 times you will see darkness till you find the light. There are many people like you searching for love, but don't you worry, you are guided from above. Oh Lord, I'm on my bended knee, asking for a sign, asking for your light to shine on me. There you are in all your glory, telling me don't be afraid, because soon you will be by my side. But there are 7 bridges to cross and 7 mountains to climb. 7 times you will see darkness till you find the light. There are many people like you searching for love, but don't you worry, you are guided from above. There are 7 bridges to cross and 7 mountains to climb. 7 times you will see darkness till you find the light. There are many people like you searching for
if we want to end suffering, we have to end the cause of suffering or the origination of suffering. The material body originates at the moment of generation by father and mother, and we have several chemical materials and so forth, constituting the female egg, male spermative cell. Book of Light teaches all these steps in utero, inside the pregnant womb, beginning with an ethereal state of being, as early mankind also was, and then continuing and continuing for 9 months normally, and then the body is born and will be nourished by the mother, and so forth and so on. This body is composed of 4 elements, generated by father, mother, and built up by the food. If you don't feed the baby dies. Yeah? So there you can see, you feed the impermanent vehicle of a being that clings to that vehicle and identifies itself with it. This body, with organs of sense, consists of chief elements, 4 chief elements. But 6 organs of sense, teaches the Book of Light. So this corporal form consists of these 4 chief elements. These are the materials from which it is built up. Identical with the inorganic substances of external world, rather directly taken from it. And then afterwards it returns to union with it. But when incorporated into the body, they are brought into a peculiar form, into a form. Just as when I build a house, I take the material, which at first has not the form of the house, and then I make the house. This is an evident fact, and we have to look purely rational at it, rational point of view. But only a few try to do that. Because why? Because they are so engulfed in their feelings they have towards their body and towards others, and these feelings blind their true judgment as to the cause of suffering. Only a few will know this with perfectly clear consciousness. This is what the teaching here is for. So, a normal person has a very shallow normal perception. But we, dear friends, we should penetrate it by longer reflection, the full significance of the cause of suffering. And in order to understand the cause of suffering, we have to understand the essence of personality. This is body with organs of sense, and it's a mere collection of transformation of matter from external nature. Basically, we are made of worked up dung, so to speak. The great Guru has said, what is the body? Said, sorry for these words, this great Guru said, is a pissing and shitting machine. I look at it as such, he says. I'm not the one who does these activities, the Guru said, but it's a pissing and shitting machine. I use it to detach myself until the very last moment when I cast off this upadhi vehicle and so forth. Great words, dear friend, great words. Normal man clings to this structure, to this personality. Look at the word personality. Derives from the Latin persona. It means mask. Some people identify themselves so much with their clothes If there's just a little spot on it, they get a heart attack. So in the same way, they say, I am these clothes. At that moment they say, I am my jacket, I am my pants, whatever. Huh? This is the tragedy of identification with that which you are not. So let's look at these elements the personality is made of. So more and more in you arises the awareness, oh, I'm not that. I thought I am that. You experience an arising and passing away. How can you be that? When you sit in a cafe and a person comes from right into your view and then leaves to the left, are you that person? I don't think so. In the same way you experience the arising and passing away of the body. And this is why you are not the body. You cling to that transiency. I agree. Let's look at the elements of which the body is made. Very important. Let us take a look at the earthy element. This is either internal or external. Internal division, external division. Whatever you find subject proper to the person, heart, solid nature, hair, head of the body, then nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, pleura, spleen, lungs, intestines, mesentery, stomach, excrements, or whatever else of hard or solid nature. That is the internal earthy element, and no one would doubt that this is transient. And whatever exists of the earthy element belonging to the subject or foreign to the subject, we say it's an earthy element. In the same way, our body consists of watery element, either internal, external. We have bile, phlegm, pus, blood. What else? Perspiration, fat, tears, sperm, spittle, nasal mucus, joint oil, urine, and whatever else there is of watery nature in the person. Internal watery element. Nobody would doubt that this is transient too. And in the same way, what exists in the watery element belonging to the subject or foreign to the subject, all that is designated as watery element. All that arises, passes away. Now let's take a look at the other element, your body, which you are not, is made. There's a fiery element. That too can be internal, external. Let's look at the internal division. Heat or fire. And this is where through warmth is present. We have digestion. By the physical frame becomes heated, whereby what is eaten and drunk and tasted and swallowed, it undergoes complete transformation, just friction, and we experience it as heat. There's whatever else of a hot or fiery nature exists, internal fiery element. Or now whatever belongs in the subject foreign to the subject, also we have there fiery element. Of what else is the personality made of? Air, of course. There's an airy element in the person. There's an airy element in that which you are not. It's the airy element of anatta. Anatta means not the self. People like the Dalai Lama defined it later as there is no self. These are people, they don't know Sanskrit. They, how can I say, abuse and rape the doctrine of the Buddha by saying anatta means there is no self. Buddha never said that. Show me one part in the Buddhist teaching, no matter how distorted they are, where the Buddha says there is no self. I give you 1 million euro. Show me one part where the Buddha says there is no self. He just always points towards what the self is not. So, the Buddha tells you what you are not. Now that you is included, of course, no matter how you define it. You can experience it, glory to the Book of Light and Soul Breath meditation, when you detach from everything we talk here about now. And you will see there is no destruction. As the Dalai Lama and many Buddhists think that nirvana means destroyed, because it means outblown. Anatta is outblown. What you are not is outblown. You not. Solve the riddle. Follow the teaching. So the air, whatever is found in the nature of air and wind in that person. Wind seated also in stomach, intestines. Traverse the limbs, incoming, outcoming, and outgoing of breath. On any else airy or windy nature exists in the subject that is proper to the person, we can call that internal airy element. Now there is also airy element either belonging to the subject or foreign to it. That too is airy element. These are the materials building up your body, included then, fed by external world. Well, even those great gurus who don't eat and drink, there are some, they too live from external world. They eat and drink, so to speak. They take the energy of the sun. That is matter too. Book of Light teaches light is matter. Matter. Thoughts are material. So, when the normal person eats, so let's say a vegetable, it also eats light. It's just transformed light. If you eat meat, it goes one step down. Not good. But you eat also transformed light. If you eat cow, meat from a cow eats grass is transformed light. And the great guru can feeds himself, nourishes himself with pure light. There's no more transformation needed. Glory to the Book of Light. So, the body compounded in a way has 6 organs of sense. But this is only the basis of personality, not yet the personality itself. In order to understand the personality itself, the persona, the mask to which you cling, which you are not, with which you identify yourself, and through which you suffer when it is taken away from you, unless you follow this teaching. You can also be born happy, live happy, and die happy. And you can escape the wheel of samsara and attain nirvana, the end of suffering.
The light in you, the light in you, the light in you, in you. Tossing and turning inside your burning, longing to reach the goal. All your illusions turned into confusion, and you don't know anymore what to do. You don't need anything else than the light in you. You don't need anything else than the light. Wherever you are, wherever you go, whatever you do. You don't need anything else than the light in you. You don't need anything else than the light in you. Wherever you are, wherever you go, whatever you do. Looking for answers where you can't find them. You were too blind to see. It's all inside you once you decide to listen to the truth in you. In you. You don't need anything else than the light in you. You don't need anything else than the light in you. Wherever you are, wherever you go, whatever you do. You don't need anything else than the light in you. You don't need anything else than the light in you. Wherever you are, wherever you go, whatever you do. Wherever you are, wherever you go, whatever you do. You don't need anything else than the light in you. You don't need anything else than the light in you. Wherever you are, wherever you go, whatever you do.
But in order to come to that point, we cannot jump immediately to that conclusion, because we have first to truly understand and maybe to be in agree with that teaching, what the body is, the personality, the transient that leads you to suffering, and then how to overcome it. Now we have a sixth sense organ, and let's see what that is. And we have also four other groups of sensation. There's four other groups: sensation, perception, activity of the mind, and cognition. How are they developed? Through the six sense organs that come into activity and intercept and gather definite quality of the external world. For instance, I describe to you now a process of attachment that you experience every day. And by doing so, you suddenly identify yourself with that which experiences all that, and you think, well, there's nothing else, not to speak of an escape from it. And to be clear, neither suicide nor death is an escape from the wheel of samsara. Let us take a look how we can overcome suffering. What are the activities of your eye? You gather forms. Now, interesting enough, you only gather forms as colors. The eye only sees colors. only colors. You perceive blue, yellow, and you perceive white. White is a color too. But there are so many things that you cannot perceive, and yet it's there. The only colors of light are the objects of the visual sense, and colorless objects. What is a colorless object? Who knows it? Who knows what a colorless object is? Atmosphere. And yet we know it's there, but it's invisible. Dear friends, physically we are the weakest link in nature. Every dog runs faster, smells better with his nose, has better activity of the eyes. Every ant lifts 10 times more than a human being could lift, compared to the size of the body, and to the size of the body, and so forth. The only thing that helps us to survive is our brain, and see how we abuse it, poisoning entire nature and its creatures. And the eye also does not always, you see, you may never have heard that. You don't see things. You don't see anything. What you experience is the pressure of reflected light on your retina, the eye. Light reflects on an object, hits back on your eye, and that's what that impression, literally. Then you call that seeing. Okay, call it seeing. If you hold a rod or a thermometer in a pail of water, the rod appears to be broken or shortened. Why? Because you don't see the things as they are. You just see the reflection of light, how light reflects from them. You see the light reflected from the rod, and that's why it appears to be broken or shortened. Only the light reflected from it, which is refracted in the water, dear friends. Therefore the Book of Light teaches all rupas, forms, are, we call these the object of the visual sense, are only forms of light. Forms of light. Glory to the Book of Light. So this is the power of the eye. That the eye can do. Every animal has 1,000 times better eyes than we are. Not every. There are some blind animals, but they have other sense organs. An eagle can see miles and miles, a little creature on earth there. Therefore, dear friends, every creature in nature, or most creatures in nature, are much better equipped with sense organs than we human. We know that the eye gathers forms. The ear sounds, the nose odors, the tongue juices, and the body tangible and palpable. Now the sense of thought, and we spoke about that already, but repetition is, according to Book of Light, the best teacher, is the reservoir of all these, and has as its object the object of the remaining 5 senses. So thinking is very important, but our teaching leads to non-thinking. Our speech leads to silence, leads to that which we left because of ignorance and of necessity, and that into which we can return consciously if we want to. And so we can end suffering. Now this is more or less the apparatus of the senses, described in much more detail in the Book of Light. But of course these senses have to come together into activity in order to be capable of functioning. So the organs of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling they must be intact. And the objects corresponding to these several organs of sense must come within their reach. And then, at last, we have action of seeing, hearing, and so on. They must be stirred, incited, influenced by an outer object. Book of Light calls it interlocking of organs, of sense, and of the forms, sounds, odors, savors, object of touch, and ideas. Everything has its correspondent organ. Though the brain is not your thoughts or the organ of thought. Brain is a container of the true organ of thought, which is the mental body, manas rupa. So therefore, Book of Light teaches human being is a sevenfold entity, but all these 7 layers are transient. And so we feel with the astral body, linga sharira, we think with the mental body, manas rupa. We actually act and sustain the physical body with energy with the etheric body, and so forth and so on. And therefore this interlocking is necessary, you see, and the more I describe the personality, the more it may come to your attention and awareness that you are not that. This is like I describe clothes of a person. That's not the person, so it's the clothes. And so, by listening to that, I create distance. You become a little bit more distant to that with which you erroneously identified yourself. Think about this possibility. If the organ of vision must work, it's intact, but if there are no external forms come within that range, a proper interlocking is not possible. If you see but there's nothing to see, the organ of sense makes no sense. Yeah? So then there's no corresponding parcel of consciousness arising. And if that organ of vision is not defective and outward forms reach it, come into reach with it, then there is an interlocking taking place. Then you may see something that interests you or that doesn't interest you or that you're not even aware of, yet it's there. But if your organ of vision is injured, and then there are outward forms, there's no proper interlocking. And then there is no consciousness. You see this chain of consciousness. Organ of vision, object, and then consciousness. If there is an interlocking. And the same way it is, dear friends, with all the other organs. Organ of hearing, of smell, of taste, of touch, of thought. You must come to interlocking with a corresponding object. You may say, yeah, but not in the object, in the organ of thinking. Yes, there too. Also, to the organ of thinking, an object must correspond. And these objects, the organ of thinking, I mentioned it before, as being like a reservoir, are the objects of the other 5 senses. That is, all the senses that I mentioned. Either directly or not directly, indirectly, as formations, and so forth and so on. Imaginative faculty arises. We have association of ideas, or memory, and there are abstract notions, and then again become object of the activity of the organ of thinking. So there must always be an interlocking. We call that in the Book of Light Dhamma. Dhamma. Realities in the most extensive sense. Ideas, for instance. There you see that the interlocking is very important in order that there is consciousness. Yet, let's be aware of it. Transient organs have an interlocking with a transient object, and that causes a transient consciousness. It's all impermanent, right? Therefore, it's not yourself, otherwise you would not be aware of that transiency. It is present as long as this cause exists, and it vanishes again into nothing when the cause disappears. When an organ of sense is excited through an external object corresponding to it, then consciousness flames up. Just like fire flames up if a match is rubbed on the rubbing surface and disappears, the organ of sense are put out of action and the fire is extinguished. This is highly occult, dear friends. Where does the fire come from? It's neither in the matchbox nor anywhere else, yet it appears at friction. It's always there, and we will come to that. It just waits for the moment that it can appear, and in the final moment it will appear immediately. These walls will they break down, and the fire will devour everything in the universe, and it will disappear again where we all come from and to where we all go, where we will rest. See, that fire will cleanse everything. It will cleanse everything, believe me. It's a cleansing fire. Starting of an activity of the sense, the corresponding consciousness, let's say visual consciousness, auditory consciousness, and so forth, it only happens when I am touched through, or when the organ is touched through the external object. And that is where, in dependence upon the eye and forms, arise visual consciousness. The conjunction of these three, dependence, eye, forms, visual consciousness, that constitutes contact. We have dependence of the ear and sounds, auditory consciousness.
There's a power flowing from the sun across the universe. Can you feel it shining through your heart, touching your very self? You're free. You're free. Let it be what it wants you to be. Let it touch you, let it set you free. There isn't anything else for you to know. Kundalini, Kundalini, let the fire glow. Open up windows of your heart. Kundalini, Kundalini, all you need to know is yourself, you shall reach the stars. Roll but it wasn't true. Don't you know that it is deep, deep inside of you? Can't you see? Can't you see? There's a universe inside of you and me. Let it be what it wants you to be. Isn't anything else for you to know? Kundalini, Kundalini, feel the river grow. Open up the windows of your heart. Kundalini, Kundalini, let the fire glow. Open up and don't be afraid to fall.
Conjunction of the three, contact. Dependence of nose and smells, olfactory consciousness. Then we have also three, the conjunction of these three, contact. Same with the tongue, flavors, gustatory consciousness, contact. So, impermanent, transient things, let's say, contact, impermanent, transient, other things. That's what happens. It's all material. See, Book of Light teaches there are three things that exist, timeless, eternal, uncreated, and this is all beings, root matter, and the source. There's nothing else. And we will come to that in detail. Also concerning the so-called Big Bang of science, which is a quite weak theory, because a 5-year-old could ask, what was before the Big Bang? Scientists cannot tell you. We can. We can. And it shows you that at the so-called Big Bang, suffering ensues or begins. We have consciousness by contact. And that's how it always works. When there's no more contact, there's no more consciousness. So we have pleasant sensations. We have unpleasant sensations. We have sensations neither pleasant nor unpleasant. We don't experience anything else. Did you ever experience anything else than pleasant sensation unpleasant sensation, or sensation neither pleasant nor unpleasant? I don't think so. I don't think so. But we don't know yet exactly the object, the true object that evokes that sensation. Such an object arises first through perception. We live in an impermanent world. That perception is directly attached to sensation. And we have a lowest sense. What is the lowest sense in a human being? Is touch, the sense of touch. That enables us clearly to observe temporal relation between sensation and perception. Let's again look at an example. Very important always to have empirical example in order to understand such occult teaching of the Book of Light. Let's say it's dark. You sleep. Now you knock towards an object with your arm. And then, because consequence of the interplay between the organ of touch and the object, there is consciousness kindled, in which contact, first of all, occurs, a contact between you and the object. If you are sleeping so deep that there is no interplay between the organ of touch and the external object, consequently there is no consciousness. You are not touched by it. But if you are touched, or you are touched, then first arises in you a sensation. Perception of the object, gradually through constant touching. But there's still very poor perception, because you have only this object of touch, you know what I mean? This organ of touch, very poor. You need other senses to convey you of this object and to analyze it. Each of our outer senses convey us to quite definite property of things. For example, as I already said, you see with the eye only colors. Only colors. The ear introduces only sounds, and not even all sounds. Animals hear more than you will ever imagine that could be heard. The nose, odors. The organ of taste, only tastes. Now, the sense of touch conveys us to the degree of a hardness or a firmness of an object, and gives you then, not immediately, infallible lead to a knowledge of an object's size, shape, hardness, temperature. But there's more to it in order to truly understand what is that. And so these are separate building stones, impermanent building stones, and your intellect must first construct the things of which those building stones originate. And then you can arrive at a total perception of the thing. Example of how imperfect our objects, our organs of sense are. You see in a distance, open country, a spot of color is rising above the ground. Then you say, oh, spot of color. That would be your first thought. If somebody asked you, what is that? You would say, it's a spot of color. No way. You will find out soon. In order to know what it really presents, you would have to have other activity of the intellect. Because the outline of the spot of color looks like a human figure. Now you conclude that's a human figure. It's a human. But then you come closer. It's rather flat. That form is rather flat. So, what is it? Maybe some puppet or whatever structure. You come closer. There are different shadows of color. And there's a degree of brightness and darkness concerning the boundary lines of the boundary lines of that colored figure. Now you may say three-dimensional. And then you continue to conclude that you may have before you a living person, but it doesn't move. It does not move. Now you are uncertain concerning your conclusion. Because maybe it's a three-dimensional scarecrow just dressed up like a man, for instance. But now you take your second sense. You see how the other senses come into play? The sense of hearing. Because from that form you hear a human voice. Now you're sure. Oh, it's a human. It's a human voice. It's a human. Really? Really? Your intellect, until now, associated this voice with the form. And that's why you say it's a human being. But you have deceived yourself. For now, something else comes into play. Next to that form, that figure, another figure rises from the ground, shouts, and runs away from it. Also, you heard the voice of that human? Well, what about that other form? Well, for now you know the voice did not come from the original figure. Really? There is a supposed certainty. You see how you're never certain. You cannot reach any definite perception at all. Now the figure runs away. First there was this one figure that was shouting, running away from the figure. Now the figure itself runs away. Now you are certain that is a human being. Really? Maybe it's still an illusion. What if it is a robot, a self-moving, ingeniously contrived automaton? What then? You're still not sure. What do you need in order to recognize that more and more? How can you make the conclusion? You must come so near to that form that you can again restore to the lowest organ of sense, to touch. You can touch it. Oh, it's of metal or what? Plastic? It's maybe a robot. Or it's a human that has a metal, uniform. So you have to talk to it. You have again to restore to your organ of speech. You have to really test this thing in order to then understand, I have now a human being in front of me. Now it's in agreement with objective reality. And now you could say it. Still, I doubt. What if it's an extraterrestrial? I mean, we could continue on and on, What if it is an androgynous or a robot made of flesh? We can, of course, go also too far in those conclusions. So let's assume now by touching this structure and by talking to it and by looking at it and it's responding to me and it's responding to me. I say, okay, it's a human. It's a human. In the same way, dear friends, it is with the perception of all objects, even if they are directly in front of you. There are separate impressions of the outer senses, and you need these outer senses. You need the transient senses, including your brain, sense object, to identify and analyze what you have in front of you. So this is how we analyze our physical body, and we will come to that. And by identifying it, being aware of these transient organs, of their arising and passing away, more and more the indestructible in us peels there is coming forth. That real you, of which the Dalai Lama says Buddha never said that there is a self, or that there is anything. Shame on the Dalai Lama. What conditions sensation? Contact. You see, when you feel, what we feel, we perceive as forms of light, sounds, and so on. And what we perceive, we think together. Characteristics of the object. And then we extend that more and more, and define and analyze and so forth. But what are we aware of transient things? The problem arises, let's take that example with that figure that was finally a human being. When we become attached to that, then we are already in the trap of suffering. Hate is suffering. Love is suffering. Dear friends, what the normal person calls love is nothing but disguised hate, if you really look at it. And the moment when that love is disappointed by whatever event, you know.
Tossing and turning inside your burning, longing to reach the goal. All your illusions turned into confusion, and you don't know anymore what to do. You don't need anything else than the light in you. You don't need anything else than the light in you. Wherever you are, wherever you go, whatever you do. Searching for answers where you can't find them, you were too blind to see. It's all inside you, once you decide to listen to the truth in you, in you. You don't need anything else than the light in you. You don't need anything else than the light in you. Oh, wherever you are, wherever you go, whatever you do. You don't need anything else than the light in you. You don't need anything else than the light in you. Wherever you are, wherever you go, whatever you do.
When we have an occurrence of the immediate perception of an object, there are sources of error to be found. They are not really in our outer senses, dear friends, but they are in the synthetic activity of the intellect. There are errors made by our intellect. And then it leads to deceptive appearance. Example. Always examples, dear friend, is very important. You sit in one of two railway trains. They stand next to each other. And then suddenly you see your own train set in motion, the train in which you sit. But in reality, it's standing still. The other is moving off. So, what deceives you? Your eye? No. Your intellect deceives you. Your intellect. Your eye brings you only the fact to awareness that there's a change in position of the two trains relative to each other. That change is beginning to take place. That's what your eye tells you, reports to you. Hello, a change is taking place. It does not tell you which of the two trains is changing, or from which of the two trains the change is coming. This is an inference of your intellect. So at that moment you're not thinking straight. Why do you think that your train is moving? Who knows? Attachment, expectation. You expect the departure of your train, and you conclude that your train may depart, let's say, at any moment. And now you see a change occur in the position of these trains relative to each other. And so, of course, it's my train that moves. It does not move. Only a liberated saint thinks really straight. And this teaching from the Book of Light was dictated to me by a liberated being, in order to liberate you. From what? From suffering, dear friend, from suffering. Deceptive appearance is given to us by most intellects. False conclusion. You know, this is what happens. We have to be aware of it. Most intellects are tainted by emotions. And emotion makes you do things that you later may regret. So you are not your emotions, you have them. How can we detach from these things, from all these transient appearances? By meditation. Soul breath meditation. You sit or lay there, you close your eyes, you observe. That's all. No transcendental meditation. My left arm gets heavy, my right arm, my whatever, any limb, you know. That's what keeps you, sorry, that keeps you thinking. It keeps you active. In soul breath meditation, you even stop thinking and you still are. You will see what a wonderful experience that is. In the same way, you see your own position on the earth that constantly shifts in relation to that of the sun. You know? And you think the sun is rising. And the notion is deeply ingrained that the earth stands firm and motionless. And the opposite is a purely abstract idea that the earth really moves, is the less able, can set you aside, to weaken a fundamental notion. It's abstract. You know, by the teaching we know that the sun does not rise and sinks down, but it's earth that experiences this surrounding, the sun, and the eye just gives you the information, like with the train, a change of the situation happened. And you, with your intellect, conclude oh well, then I guess, the sun is rising. We are not moving. There you have this other phenomenon. Because the earth seems to you, now think about that, in the train where you sit, you expect to move. On earth, a human being, because the earth is so static in its structure, thinks, no, the earth is not moving. So only the other thing can move. It's quite the contrary. And automatically, you infer that in the relation of your position on the earth to the sun, constantly occurs a change of position. And that the cause of this cannot reside on the earth. Therefore, it's the sun that moves. And science, which is not bad at all, there are so many pseudo-occultists and esoterics who curse science and say science is all wrong. No. Science just lacks the other half. This is the union of all religions in the world. It's the Book of Light. So the syllogistic activity of your intellect brings the perception of things. And the intellect has to be the corrective instrument, I should say. This is why Jesus said the truth shall set you free. This is why you have to turn, dear friends, you have to change from believers into knowers. Use your intellect in the right way, and you will see that you're not even the intellect. And it leads you more and more to the question, who am I? The answer is, wrong question. You should ask, who am I not? Detach yourself from it, and then you got the answer. How do I detach from it? By these teachings and through meditation. Glory to the Book of Light. Under the guidance of the Book of Light, complete agreement with daily experience and also with science, yes. You can find or presented to you the origination and mechanism of personality, or of the 5 groups of grasping, which you are not, which you just use. When we review this origin of personality, then we see the 5 groups. The personality exhausts itself completely in these 5 groups, nothing more. There's nothing more to detach from, dear friends. There's nothing more that causes your suffering. And we will come to it, how to end suffering. But you have to be patient. Otherwise, you jump too quickly to conclusion. By collision of an organ of sense with an object corresponding to it, there is consciousness. Then, sensation, perception of the object, functions of the mind, cognition, consequences, consciousness. And you cannot separate these things, you know. Once you are encased in the personality, you cannot separate them and say this is contact, this is sensation, this is will, cognition, and so forth. It's like a soup that has all the ingredients in it. You cannot extract them anymore. It's there. See what I mean? You can only listen to this teaching and then to decide either to detach from all these transient groups or to use them more wisely. Not to be their slave as most people are. But you are then in control. This is a process that may take long or may happen in one day. The success. It depends on your degree of attachment until now. To these 5 groups of grasping, to to that which you are not, dear friend. And this is why we have eyes and forms, ears and sounds, nose and odors, tongues and flavors. We have bodies and object of touch, organ of thinking, ideas, organ of thinking and ideas. Thoughts are things, dear friends. Everything is material world. Everything is matter. Even the highest heavens of taught in the Bible or in the Quran are made of very, very, very refined matter, nothing else, material. So there's nothing else? Is there only the material? So then, we are lost. We're constantly, because the Book of Light teaches, everything material is the cause of suffering, then we are slaves to suffering. No, we are not. Because, and now very cautiously now I tell you, you, the true you is immaterial. I leave it for now to that. The cause of suffering. We must understand the machine of the six senses. It becomes intelligible. What is the machine of the six senses? Which is not you, to which you just cling. This machine of the six senses consists of body endowed with vitality, so it can live and die. And therefore only organs of sense are capable of living, the faculty of life, and can then function. But we have to understand this in still more detail. Still more detail. We must understand how the organs of sense, the bodily organs, come into possession of their peculiar faculty of arousing consciousness and sensations and perceptions. There are 5 senses: sight, hearing, smell, taste and touch. And by what reason do they continue their existence? They exist by reason of vitality. So the function of the 5 senses are nothing but manifestations of vitality. That is sufficient reason. We have these terms, nama, rupa. Rupa is the body. Nama is the faculty of sensation, perception, thought, attention, and so on. You see, when people were given names in older times, he was called Miller. Well, he had a mill. Or he was called Fisher. His name was Fisher. He was fishing, maybe. Some of them, not all. So, name was given to the people according to their faculty of what they do. Today not anymore, but there was a time when that happened. Now, what is nama rupa? Sensation, perception, thinking, contact, attention. This is nama. Nama. But what is rupa? 4 chief elements: corporal form, and this is called rupa. And we spoke about the 4 chief elements. And therefore we cling to nama rupa, to the 6 sense machine. This 6 sense machine makes possible contact between us and objects of the outer world, and thereby sensation and mentation. Dear friends, you can become everything in the world. Why? Because you are not of this world. Like an artist can form a sculpture, everything. He's not the sculpture. You are not of this world. You left the source through ignorance and necessity, diving into material world in order to gain experience. But the result will be, hopefully sooner or later, that you are aware that you are God. God-man, God. This is, of course, the religions fight against it. No, there's only one God. There's only one God, that's you. There's only one source that is deep inside of you, not anywhere out there in the universe, dear scientists. Instead of waiting zillions of dollars, feed the hungry in the world, you look for the source of everything outside somewhere, and you drift further and further away from it, farther and farther. The source is in you. You can experience it in meditation, and it costs you nothing compared to that. You see, our teaching is also on the internet, yes, and it's free at expense. Entire teaching of the Book of Light is free at expense. Yet it is also in books, because books have occult power. Occult power. Very important to have the teaching in books. So, there will be very soon the entire Book of Light, all thousands of pages in one book. So to speak, enhancing its power by occult radiation.
Be like a channel of love. Let it go, let it flow deep inside you. It is growing, so be a channel of love. You can't touch it, you can't see it, but you know it is real, so be a channel of love. Don't let the world fool you. Don't play their game. Things are changing, nothing stays the same, the same. So be like a channel of love. Let His light shine on you from above. Let the world know that you are free. Be like a bird in the sky. Spread your wings and learn how to fly. You can be whatever you want to be, so be. When you're feeling down and low, you don't know where to go, just be a channel of love. I've been searching all my life. Now I know it's deep inside. I can feel it. I'm a channel of love. Don't turn around. Yesterday is gone, and tomorrow is so far away, away. Be like a channel of love. Let His light shine on you from above. Let the world know that you can finally see what is real. Be like a bird in the sky. Spread your wings and learn how to fly. You can be whatever you want to be, so just be like a channel of love, of love.
I was silent now for a moment, just to make you aware that the truth of all and true immortality, detached from all transient things, is in the silence. My words lead to silence. My words lead, hopefully, you to daily meditation. At least try to meditate half an hour a day. Be completely silent. Silent. May not work immediately. According to your attachment, you may be disturbed by asavos, by influences, and so forth, by thoughts. And many people, I know people, they don't meditate anymore. They bought the little booklet, Soul Breath Meditation, Divine Message from the True God Nirvana. By the way, it's not Creator God, and we are no atheists. And they said, Lonu, I meditated, and I was haunted by thousands of thoughts, by feelings, emotions, and I stopped immediately. I said, well, if you would continue meditating and just observing them, not get in touch with them, nothing, just observing them, they will disappear sooner or later. You gave them so much importance throughout many lifetimes. For the first time you are aware of the problem, and now you escape again. Glory to the Book of Light, dear friends. So we cling to the sixth sense machine. And by this clinging, we experience suffering at the moment when it is taken away from us, latest at death, or by accident, and so forth and so on. And in the silence, we are thrown back over and over again to the silence, dear friends. Glory to the Book of Light. On what does the corporal organism depend? On consciousness. On consciousness. And this kind of consciousness appears by concrete sensation. This is the nature of the organ, of the physical body. Take away consciousness from a child. Can it increase in development? No. No, not really. So we have in consciousness the cause, the occasion, the origin, the dependence of the corporal organism. Accordingly, you have in the corporal organism the cause, the occasion, the origin, and the dependence of consciousness. There is a theory where sensations and perceptions arise only through the external object irritating the organ of sense. But here I would argue it becomes unintelligible how an irritating object is felt and perceived as being outside an organ of sense, and then this occurring process only in or about the organ of sense, and therefore not being able to reach out of the realm of the same. You see? There must be an interlocking. We're talking about that. Because sometimes you look from your house through the window, the street, things happen, you're not aware that they happen because they don't interest you. They don't interest you. But there is something. Oh, let's see. Immediately an interlocking takes place. Now you know. Well, as you know, you don't know really, because as with the example of the colored spot, you know, you're maybe too far away, you don't know what's going on there. Other example, more radical. You see a man on the street attacking another man, hitting him with a bottle, cruelly with a crushed bottle in the face, and that man goes down. Of course, immediately you would think, what is such a horror? This man hit the other man with a bottle? Oh my God, what a monster. But then, later it turns out in the police report, that man was before there in a house where he killed the entire family of this man that attacked him now. Would you think differently now? Would you feel differently? And so forth and so on. So you see, we are basically constantly uninformed. We don't conclude right. We don't come to right conclusion. Don't follow any gurus. We have the Book of Light. This is our guru. We are all Anus, students. The Anu means student. So there's your body. It's built up of the four chief elements, sprung forth from your father and mother. But not you. You were not born through your mother and father. Just your body. And your attachment to this world lead you through the reincarnative process through your mother right now, where you're born. But the real you is unborn. Anupapadaka. Parentless. Think about that. I mentioned the match built up of wood and of chemical stuffs. And then the fire bound to it through the friction. The friction. See? Fire is always there. If the friction appears, the condition that the fire can leave its source and devours. When the friction ends, the fire ends, so to speak. Or the fire is fed by new material. Therefore, be aware of it, dear friends. The 5 groups are representing the only and complete components of your personality. Listen well, of your personality. You are not the body, you have a body. You look now more and more, you can see through the mechanism of that machine. Personality is a machine at work. Includes its products. Represented by the corporal organism, which we call now the sixth sense machine. And it has an heterogeneous element is consciousness. Flames up, produces sensations, aroused by, if there is an interlocking, respective organ of sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch, thought, sensation of seeing, then hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking. And logically, a respective perception of the object felt in this way. And then, out of this sensation and perception, arise the activities of the mind, although very imperfect first, maybe, as you could have seen with the example of that colored spot, which later turns out to be a human being. And even then, we are not quite sure, if we really want to be sure. The corporal organism and the consciousness are very important groups. They unite themselves to produce 3 other groups of sensation, perception, and of the activities of the mind as common result. This is, dear friends, mutual conditionality. Substrata of the personality, body endowed with consciousness, is produced. And there you have the machine. Be born, grow old, die, dissolve, reappear in reincarnation. We have verbal expression, process of explanation, process of manifestation. Everything arises and passes away. Now you can, without further ado, think about an essential quality that pertains to all the 5 groups wherein personality consists. And it's very important to stress upon this quality. We can dissolve personality, we must, into the 5 groups. Therefore, we come to the following result. The material essence of the personality is the corporal organism. We call it here the sixth sense machine. This machine has sub-machines in it, organs of the senses. It has also necessary contrivances in order to be further maintained. It is supplied with fuel, like any other machine, in the maternal womb, during pregnancy. And we shall see later what that means. Also built up of parts of the outer world, constantly fed, the machine, constantly, like put gas into a car, you know. We have constantly to feed the machine. So you're not the car, you drive a car. You're not that body, you drive it. But most people have become slaves to that of which they thought they are. It's understandable. And this is why it is ripped away from him life after life, in order to understand you're the boss, not that to which you cling. When this machine is fed well, and through unbroken supply of food and so forth and so on, it works, you know, including activities of the mind. If it doesn't work any longer, you may experience this as a loss because you cannot use it anymore. And you long for a new machine, you will get it next life. You want a new built sixth sense machine. Therefore, also the sensation, perception, activities of the mind are nothing persistent. And the element of consciousness neither. So if you say, I am my consciousness, I am my thoughts, it's all nonsense. You have thoughts. You use your organ of thought to think. You may also not think, which is of course unbearable for most people. They even think when they go to bed, the brain works and works and works continuously. I can't stop thinking, they say. In meditation you can, sooner or later. So this sixth sense machine, you see how you maybe now detach distance, maybe a little bit more, to the corporal organism, and don't give him always what he wants, but be a bit more wise. Wise. We live in a world of suffering. Do you doubt it? Are you still doubting it? I think so. Because if you doubt, you have not yet really grasped what you are not. Not what you are not. Book of Light teaches the entire world, concerning beginning as well as continuing and its end, is connected with our personality. We spoke about the 5 groups constituting personality. They are causally conditioned in a way that the corporal group represents the basis of the 4 other groups. These 4 other groups are sensation, perception, mentation, and cognition. And even through activity of the organs of sense. The body, we know that, is a product of substances, the 4 chief elements. It's built up of the four chief elements. Therefore, itself conditioned by these. When we look at our personality and the entire world, it's the same, the four chief elements. Transient. Of course, we have parallel universes. The Book of Light teaches all of them. Parallel universes, abstract universes, invisible to us right now, but we are really in them, interblended with them, and so forth and so on. But all of them are transient. Are transient. What is transiency, dear friend? What is it? External watery element will rise. One day it will come in fury. And then the external earthy element will disappear. Book of Light teaches the earth disappears in about 2 billion years. Then to reincarnate on a new chain, because as there is reincarnation of planets, there's reincarnation of humans and of everything else. The watery element will rise. It will take away villages. Everything will be drowned. And then the water will cease up to a man's middle, to his loins, to his knees, to his ankle. There will be a time when there's no more water left in the great ocean that will cover one joint of the finger, I tell you. It will reveal itself unmistakably as transient and as not yourself, Anata, the entire world. Subject to ruin, destruction, vicissitude. The same, dear friends, with the fiery element, of which you are made too. It rages furiously. It will devour everything. And only it will cease when there is naught to devour. And the time will come when there is no more fire, when they need a fan made of a fowl's wing, from scraps of hide.
On earth have been cried. See the million children of hunger they die. See the rich man smile and the poor man starve, showing his fist to the God above. Asking why? But for every tear that's been cried on earth, there's an angel in heaven who always cares, and each feeling of love that comes from the soul in heaven's world, it will shine as gold. He wants you to know that you're part of his plan, and you feel the pain if you don't understand. But once you open your heart to his truth, never-ending glory is waiting for you. He'll be there. He'll be there for you. So for every tear that's been cried on earth, there's an angel in heaven who always cares, and each feeling of love that comes from the soul in heaven's world, it will shine as gold. There is only the reality of love, of love. So wherever you are and wherever you go, he will never ever leave you alone. And if you're feeling down and low, he will give you the power to carry on. So for every tear that's been cried on earth, there's an angel in heaven who always cares. And each feeling of love that comes from the soul in heaven's world, it will shine its gold.
In that day, the great external fiery element will unmistakably reveal itself as permanent? No, transient. Transient. And so forth and so on. The airy element will rage. It is raging right now, tearing apart, villages, towns, cities, provinces, kingdoms, everything. And then the time will come when there's no movement of air. And that day then the great external airy element will reveal itself as transient, subject to ruin, destruction, and all vicissitude. Now this is the nature of the four chief elements: transitoriness. And of course then the same, especially with our body. And the corporal form is transient. It underlies the arising of the corporal form. A corporal form arisen from that which is transient, how could it be permanent? No matter how much Botox you inject into you and other things. What about sensation? Maybe that is not transient? Excuse me, sensation is transient. And what underlies the arising of sensation, what conditions it, is transient too. Perception, transient. Activities of the mind, transient. You are not your mind. There may be moments when you don't think, then you would lose your consciousness. You're still there, right? So you use your mind. We'll come also to the question if you are your will. Schopenhauer said human beings, man is his will. Well, if that is so, there's no salvation for none of us. You use a will. You can have a will or not. Yes, that you can do. Cognition, transient. All the 5 groups of personality on which our volition is concentrated. They are the 5 groups of grasping. In the same way, all external objects of will, they show arising, passing away. During existence, vicissitude shows itself. So therefore, you are not that. It's anatta, not the self. Let me ask you, is the body permanent or transient? Or some may say, the day will come when we are all immortal. Yeah, but only in your fantasy. Only in your fantasy. Every form must vanish. Because it shows arising, passing away, and during existence it shows vicissitude. And that which is transient, is that painful or pleasant? I think it's painful. Now think about sensation, perception, activities of the mind, cognition, permanent or transient? Transient. And therefore, painful, painful, painful. The painfulness, consequence of transitoriness, shows itself in our body as decay and death. and as pain, sorrow, grief, and despair. No matter how much you want deny that. Now, every satisfaction of the will, what remains is nothing but suffering caused by its loss. William Bush said, a wish which is fulfilled creates new wishes. How true. Therefore, according to the Book of Light, everything ultimately that we are aware of in this world is suffering. Are we lost? Listen to the teaching of the Book of Light. It will give you the answer. If you believe after death in eternal heaven, you're completely wrong. There's none like that. There is heaven. Oh yeah, there's hell. And there's earth. There's a scale, so to speak. And these levels are described in detail in the Book of Light, but they're impermanent. Detachment from them will lead you to the imperishable, to the permanent, timeless, eternal. What higher goal could there be? Tell me. Yesterday you had pleasures. Well, yesterday. And tomorrow. Two, and then morrow. Then you know what tomorrow means. And by the way, is there a tomorrow? Can you show me tomorrow? I pay you €1 million. 1 million, okay? If you show me tomorrow. I have the money. I give it to you. You may say, well, today is Sunday, and tomorrow I show you it's Monday. Well, and Monday comes and you show me Monday, you say, that is tomorrow? I don't think so. You at best say this is today. There's no tomorrow. That's the first lesson that we have to learn. It's a tough lesson. Go to the deathbed of some people and contemplate there. Of some sensualist who on the deathbed now regrets all his life of rebelled, life of pleasure, squandered all he had, faced with nothing, now, so to speak, ripped off everything. And their struggling of will to life is there. And the dying man, you could say, even if he is an atheist, he could say, well, I'm dead, but my children will have the fruits of my labors, and my pains and troubles, my relatives, and mankind as a whole. And so, the Book of Light says, you fool. To that dying man said, you fool. You're talking of evolution of mankind. Take a close look. The entire machine rises higher and higher, and then it collapses again. The entire towering edifice. So-called superior civilization. We always teach in the Book of Light, there is no physical evolution that's important, moral evolution. The forms are cast off over and over again. So it goes on through endless times, arising of the universe, disappearing, arising, disappearing, arising, disappearing. You can escape that painful situation. So there is an impossibility of any lasting satisfaction of will. It prevails throughout the entire world. And therefore, suffering dominates. This is evident. This is obvious. No wise it can be refuted. It can be ignored, yes. But the will of man, this foundation, is so strong that he ignores this fundamental truth. He doesn't want to see it. He invents empty sophisms. He babbles high-sounding phrases about a final reach of bliss in this material world. Never, 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 never. So there are people there, you cannot talk with them about this. See, this is a teaching only for few, dear friends, only for few. But sooner or later it may be for all or for more. Such people who don't understand this or don't want to be confronted with it, they are under the ban of their blind cleaving and craving and grasping to life. They cannot keep to pure observation of the problem. They cannot be objective. They cannot see clear. The truth shall set you free, said Jesus. And that is what we're talking about. All compounds of existence are impermanent. Therefore, all compounds of existence are painful. If you cling to them, identify yourself with them, and so forth and so on. This is insight. And this is the cause of this is about suffering, about suffering. Entire universe, from the highest God manifestation up to the lowest worm, is basically in the state of suffering. And this is why the Buddha, by the way, became the teacher of man and of God and gods. Sorrowful is everything. Materialism dominates. Attachment to material world leads to suffering. And that's the point. Includes the solar system, because even the solar system one day dissolves in cosmic nebula, develops again into new solar system, yes. But the results are lost again. They were picked up again at skandhas, impermanent atoms, which comes deep into the teaching of reincarnation, and they manifest again just to be ripped off again. You're constantly ripped off by the results of that which you have achieved, because you haven't achieved yet the highest. And that is nirvana. But it's too early to talk about it. There's no beginning and end of the round of rebirth, of samsara, because you always fall from timelessness into time. That's the point. There's a flood of suffering, dreadfulness and awfulness of life in its full measure. And we experience it right now in these days, where insane people, criminal demons are ruling mankind on all levels, economically, on the religious level, everywhere. Book of Light teaches the round of rebirth, and the creatures wander incessantly in these different incarnations. There are 5 main levels: Hell Kingdom, Animal Kingdom, Realm of Shades, World of Man, and Abodes of the Gods. Abodes of the Gods. Yeah? And all these are described in detail in the Book of Light. Not to scare you, but to make you understand that just because a person may reincarnate into a heavenly world does not mean that it cannot fall down to hell again, because reincarnation doesn't work that way. This is the problem, that the teaching of karma and reincarnation is not even known. A pseudo-occult what happens there. We will come now in detail to that teaching too, so that you understand why one person can reincarnate in heaven and for the next existence fall in deepest hell. It's possible. So all these kingdoms have been known by the great Buddha, and he describes them, and in the Book of Light are they also described, because the Book of Light is also the secret doctrine of the Buddha, you could say, dictated to me by the Mahachohan. And then we know when a person conducts himself in such and such a way, then after death he is born in a corresponding level. But since a person is not always good and not always bad, but there are different aspects of action, of karma. This is one of the reasons why he can be born reincarnated in heaven, and yet then for all his good deeds. And then as a result of the bad deeds, he can then, next incarnation, down in hell. This is how we learn. Sorrow, sadness is, of course, the nature of the hell world, hell world. These are astral realms where you suffer in your astral body because the physical is dead, but then you wake up and you reap as you sow. And thus we can see, when we have the teaching and when we are detached, we can, by looking at a person, almost see where and how he reincarnates. We can almost see it, And so many times we have experienced the death of the mother, the death of the father, the death of the son, the death of the daughter, the death of brother and sister, and so forth and so on. Many times we were oppressed by sickness. And all this happened over and over from birth and birth again. Yes, there were happy moments too, yes. But the Buddha asked his disciples, what do you think? What is more, the blood that you have lost on this way by decapitation, dear friends, and decapitation is apropos because nowadays everybody decapitates everybody with ISIS and all that. While we know that ISIS is actually financed by the powerful who claim to fight ISIS. No, they finance it. Okay, this is another topic. Now, what do you think? And karma is also decapitation karma. French Revolution, Atlantean times, and so, crusades. How many Christians decapitated Muslims? Yeah? So, what do you think? What is more, the blood that you have lost, that was flowing at your decapitation, only your blood, only your, or the water of the 4 great oceans? What do you think? Of course, the blood. My teacher said to me, Lanu, if you would know what you have done in past life, you would die of a brain stroke immediately. Okay. Throughout long time, you have shed blood, sentenced to death as murder, executed, and so forth. Shed blood, caught as robbers, executed. Detected as adulterers, blood, executed. What do you think? What is more, the blood that was flowing at your decapitation while you were again and again running to new birth and death? Or the water of the 4 great oceans? You know the answer. Your blood. Always in different bodies. We were ourselves buffaloes and buffalo calves and animals. We have shed more blood in being decapitated than water is contained within the 4 great oceans. Book of Light teaches evolution, creation, and emanation. Everything emanates, interacts, and there is evolution, evolves. And by supplying the higher beings, supply the lowest with forms, there is a creation, certain creation, through Elohim. But the wheel of evolution goes, you as a being, we call it the monad, you manifested first in the mineral kingdom many times, then in the plant kingdom many times, then in the animal kingdom many times. Now we are in the human kingdom, then we go up to the Deva kingdom, the angels, and so forth and so on. But let's think about the time when we were in the animal kingdom. How often have we been decapitated? And what is the blood shed? Is more the blood shed or the waters of the ocean? Of course, the blood shed. We were goats, we were everything, we were all animals. And yet it says animal derives from man. So of the riddle, it's all taught in the Book of Life. So when we were goats, we have truly shed blood and been decapitated. We were deer, stags, we shed blood. More than the water of the 4 great oceans. We were swines, pigs. Oh, did we shed blood and being slaughtered. We were hens and doves and geese. We shed more blood being butchered than there is water contained within the 4 great oceans. And why is it possible? Because without beginning and end is the round of rebirth. Unless, and I don't say more for now. And think about the hell life of these poor people who are suffering and so forth and so on. That has to do with initiation. Actually, you are right now in the process of initiation. That's another secret, occult secret. Oh, dear friends, the teaching of karma and reincarnation got lost in the Bible. It was taught there. It is even now taught in the Quran. But the people don't know. They don't understand their religious scriptures. This is why we have the Book of Life. Let me present you with 3 statements from the Book of Light. After death, there is existence. Second, this existence is affected by rebirth. Other term would be more scientifically palingenesis. And it takes place within the 5 rounds which are taught in the Book of Light. This was known to an immense majority of mankind, but it got lost. Now we are in the age of Aquarius. We can change from believers into knowers. There was once one knowledge, it later separated in all the religions of today. The time has come now to unite all religions of the world under that one knowledge without taking their individual message away. Glory to the Book of Light.
Once we were free, roaming through time and space, shining in cosmic rays, touching the sun. Nothing to fear, masters of destiny. That's what we used to be, you and I. But when karma called, we were meant to fall, 'cause we didn't obey the law. Rebels of the universe, rebels of the universe, that's what we are. Rebels of the universe, rebels of the universe, we've gone too far, too far. pay the price, fighting indignity. One day we shall be free, you and I. Life after life, we shall return again, until we understand who we are. We are rebels of the universe, rebels of the universe. That's what we are. Rebels of the universe, rebels of the universe. We've gone too far, too far. But the day will come, and in the end, we will be gods again, again. Rebels of the universe, rebels of the universe, that's what we are. Rebels of the universe, rebels of the universe, have we gone too far? Too far.
How deeply rooted in man is the consciousness of karma and reincarnation. And how deeply in man is rooted the fact that he is not the body. Immediately before death, he thinks, oh my God, even the greatest atheist, I saw atheists dying, come on. Oh my God, what now? What will happen now? If he would be the body, it would be the most natural thing to die. Excuse me, if you are that which is arising and passing away, you may even say, excuse me, I must die now, bye. And that's it. That's where the fear of death comes from, that we are not the body, we cling to it. At that moment we are aware of it. And our desire at the moment of death leads to new reincarnation in a new body, caused by karma and the actions of the past life. So deeply rooted in man is this phenomenon. Yet we are materialists. We are materialists. We say everything is matter except the being itself. It clothes itself in sheaths and upadhis, in vahans of matter, from the most refined to the most dense, shedding them off over and over again like a snake is shedding off his skin, for example. This goes deep into the mystery of life. And materialists who deny the existence of that other true you, they are in deep water in their argumentation, you know. Now, some explain it in a way that there is no next life, that the fact of such a longing present in every man is essential. Yeah, well, if it would be essential, then you would be the body. Would be the body. And so, nature makes nothing in vain, you could say. We could not possess this longing at all if it were not to be satisfied. So this longing leads to reincarnation. The longing for life leads to new life. And of course, to new death. We all did something that deserves death penalty. So don't judge too quick about somebody who said he killed this and this person, so he deserves death penalty. What did you do to deserve death penalty? You died too? What did I do? What did we do? We left the source. We are the lost children. And we dive into matter and we taste from it, from the forbidden fruit. This world is the reign of Satan, dear friends, and you pay the price. This is a fact that you cannot escape. And there are the system of materialism. Why should I, if I'm materialist, atheist, materialist, what does it mean then to sacrifice my own life for another person? If I have a materialistic view of the world, then life is the highest thing for me, no? Everything without a remainder being annihilated for me, the annihilation of my own life, where's the equivalent for such a sacrifice of life for another man, for instance? A noble deed. If after death everything is over, where's ethics? Where's moral? I don't need nothing. Dear friends, if there would be only one life, I would teach you how to eat and drink and do whatever you like, because after it's over. Then materialists argue, well, let's take a good materialist. Say, why are you good? What's wrong with you? You have only one life. He would say, well, the equivalent of an action must be sought in the fact that it's made for the benefit of another creature. But then I ask, if a man sacrificing his life sacrifices it for a lost cause, what then? Think about those, I read it somewhere, those 500 Switzers sacrificed themselves lives for Louis XVI. And then the Tuileries were stormed by the people. That was a completely worthless sacrifice of life. And so it makes no sense. Any ethics makes no sense for somebody who only believes in one life. Why should he be anything? Why shouldn't he be as bad as he wants to if he likes it? Think about that, dear friends. Book of Light teaches morality is the highest function of man. Morality is taken much higher than knowledge. For instance, if you have a moral man, a real, honestly moral man, you will not necessarily miss knowledge. But if you have a genius in front of you without morals, you sort of feel repulsive. Well, if somebody is stupid, you act with regret or smile. But immorality rouses indignation. Therefore, I say that in order to test a philosophical system in its aptitude, it's forming the basis of a moral system. But again, a moral instinct would be illogical if a human individuality exists only for one life. If only that visible part had validity and you are then annihilated, then you are like any other criminal or man condemned to death, only that your way to the scaffold maybe a little longer. And it's uncertain when you reach it. You see? There's no difference between a criminal and you. And as a matter of fact, there isn't. Because we too did things that deserve death. And just by being here, it deserves death. That's why you are sentenced to death, because you're here. This is the point. Look at the Christian doctrine of personal survival after death and an eternal heaven or hell. You would have to believe in a personal God. And that leads to monstrous contradictions. You cannot imagine a God who is the sum of infinite goodness, wisdom, and power. That such God creates beings of whom he knows ahead, because he is all wise and all knowing, that some of them are condemned to hell and others for heaven. And these beings choose, of course, they have free will, you may argue, their gruesome fate themselves, as their will is free. But a gracious, all-knowing God must have known how they would use that will, before he even created them. So he is to blame. Then he sends his son to suffer on cross. Sadomasochism poor? No. When a God knows beforehand, in virtue of his omniscience, how dreadful the existence of his own creatures will be, then it's a perverted God. Such a God, thank God, such a God does not exist. And yet there is God and there are gods, teaches the Book of Light. God is the highest being and manifestation, the highest spiritual being, appearing at the reawakening of the universe. And then trickles down all the other gods and angels and man and plants and so forth and so on. That's how it works. And then there is interaction, and there's then also creation, but first of all there is emanation, a constant periodical forthcoming of uncreated, timeless, eternal beings into manifestation, touching matter, tasting from the forbidden fruit, surrounding themselves with according forms according to their desire, and so forth and so on. I can only give hints here. You would have to study it in the Book of Light. So there is, of course, palingenesis, reincarnation. It is the only possible form of existence after death. And so then, man, if he accepts this teaching, maybe even only good because he doesn't want to have bad karma, so what? Soon it will be his habit good to be good. That's okay. So the dying creature surrounds itself, then the being leaves the body and surrounds itself with a new body, given in that connection by mother and father, although the Book of Light teaches we were androgynous, reproducing through other methods, and we will be androgynous again. This is the rebirth of the person, of the personality. Picking up the skandhas after each death, the permanent atoms in which his activities are stored, and regrouping around a new female womb that equals the vibrations of this person. So don't blame your parents for anything. Thank them on your knees. That they give you the chance to outlive your karma and to learn. So this is a hypothesis, yes, a theory that can be experienced by you. You reflect it and you see if it makes sense to you. If it doesn't make sense to you, look somewhere else. The fresh existence is paid for by the old age and the death of a worn-out creature that has perished. But it contained in itself the indestructible germ from which the new existence originated. We call it skandhas. And this is the cause of reincarnation. Desire for life. Desire for life gives you life. As a matter of fact, you get everything that you desire. It's just been taken away from you. Is there anything that cannot be taken away from you that you desire? Yes. But let's first look into the cause of suffering. The cause of suffering. This is summary of the Book of Light. The monad, the spirit, goes through all the kingdoms of nature and now appears in the human kingdom, our case. And rebirth does not necessarily take place upon our earth. It can be also in other universes, parallel universes, and so forth and so on. Depends to your state of attachment. You know? If you don't want nothing anymore from this world, you become a monk, you will not reincarnate in this world anymore. If you have not completely detached, you will reincarnate in, these steps of reincarnation are described in the Book of Light, in a higher heavenly realm where you could continue to meditate and rise higher and higher. This is our evolution, moral evolution, dear friends. Constantly casting off all the forms. And this is how we learn life after life. When somebody says I am, this is a most certain axiom. Most people do that. And he says it without any proof, actually. Because whenever I want to prove that, I want to prove it. And to prove to myself. So it's certain, more certain than all perception, that we are. Depends now only what are we really. Are we those impermanent beings? Atheists believe only for one life. Reincarnation is for many lives. Do we have the choice only between one life and many lives? No, there's something more. To escape the wheel of samsara. So somebody may ask you, prove to me that you are. I could even doubt that I am, if I really am. I may doubt if the definition of the essence can be undertaken by an idea of being, gained through perception. Maybe I is just more than just a thought. But I prove whatever I like. The reality of whatever I may call it, of the one that is clinging to these transient body and bodies, is evident. Is evident. It's not affected by anything, even if I acknowledge the validity of the question. I cannot argue away my own existence, even with the deepest analysis. And now people may come and say, you are nothing. Yeah, what does that mean? Split it. It means no thing. Yes, bravo. Bravo. That's what I am. I could answer. And I could also say, if I do not exist, why do you trouble yourself at all to prove that to me, that I don't? You presuppose in all your arguments me as a person to whom you address them. And in the same way you presuppose yourself in setting it forth. How is it possible to undertake to prove that we do not exist if we had not existed in advance to give this proof? So this is a stupid question. Prove to me that you exist. It's almost like, why is it at night colder than outside. Not every question deserves an answer, dear friend. The question, who am I, doesn't deserve an answer. Who am I not? Yes. That yes. Everything that I experience as arising and passing away, I cannot be. That's correct. So the question, am I not, makes no sense. It doesn't cast any doubt about the actuality of myself. Maybe I'm not what I think to be, something else, but I tell you, when you experience soul breath meditation and detach every day more and more a little bit from what you are not, you will have the answer. You will have the answer. There's no distraction. Then you can say, well, or even before you could say, well, maybe I'm not what up to now I thought to be. Maybe I'm something that neither you nor any other man is able to find out, but in spite of all, I am. There may be something inscrutable. That inscrutable, that cannot be described, you can empirically experience in soul breath meditation. Glory to the Book of Light.